You're listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast, discussing all aspects of precision and long-range rifle shooting. This episode is brought to you by Scoped Out Shooting Optics and Accessories. And now, over to your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to the Precision Shooting Podcast. I believe this is episode number 65. Yes, it is. It's been a little while since we've been done an episode, actually. We've been away in all sorts of places, and the last one's been about the Darwin event, and from that particular episode, you may know one of our, I was going to say contestants. That's not right, is it, Greg? These guys aren't contestants, are they?
I don't know. What do you call them?
People joining us. But anyway, Greg Badco, everyone knows Greg. How are you, Greg?
Yeah, good, Rusty. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. We got to talk about Brisbane shortly. But from the Darwin podcast and previous episodes as well. Bronte, how are you, mate?
Yeah, g'day, Rusty. How you doing?
Good, mate. Excellent. And first-time caller, long-time... No, he's heard one or two episodes before, is Paul Waning from Scoped Out. How are you, Paul?
Good, Rusty. How you go, boys?
Good. He's just he's learning how to use his microphone tonight for the first time, which is... are you nervous, mate?
Extremely nervous, especially with you fellas.
But what about the podcast, though?
Oh, that's fine. That'll
Yeah.
be.
I thought you'd be right with that one. So,
I'll autograph something for him later.
Where's one of those mugs?
yeah, and then drop it into three pieces on the way out. So, you'll be pleased to know, Fat Jesus got his mug in one piece.
Wow, 1 out of 2.
Yeah, 1 out of 2. We've done well. One day we'll get some more mugs, I suspect. And yeah, that really, I guess, sums up the last. What has it been since we've done a podcast in this room? About 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last one was with Jace from the SAF class team, which was good.
Yeah,
I
good
thought.
podcast. Yeah, good insight into target shooting.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah, I did. It was quite interesting to hear the different aspects he takes to shooting, given coming from an F-class background versus probably the rest of us, which were more of a tactical and hunting background.
Yeah, no, it was good to have him on board, and no doubt at some point we will get him back to have another chat, I'm sure. And then, of course, we had a couple of episodes up in Darwin, which, Bronte, you were a part of the first one, which was the more sensible one, the one done on the line. We won't recap too much about that shoot because we certainly spent that episode and then the next one rambling on at a pub about it. And actually, I don't think it made into the episode, but there was on the Monday when we were at the pub doing the wrap-up, a lady come up to us right towards the end of the podcast. I think you can kind of hear it in the background. And she just goes, "Excuse me, but what the hell are you guys doing?" And which is probably a fair call because about 6 guys sitting around with microphones talking at the pub. And when we started at that podcast, there was about 8 people in the pub. And when we finished, there was about 80 all around us. So it probably got noisier as the thing went on. But did you enjoy the shoot, Bronte?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Butters puts on a good show up there, and the NT guys are always up for a bit of a laugh. Unfortunately, I was crook as a dog for the whole weekend, which took the shine off things a bit. But it was still a great weekend. It was a well-run event.
Yeah, it was good. Did you guys see photos and bits and pieces from it?
Yeah, I saw a few. I saw you were wounded at one point, were you?
Yes.
What happened there?
Smashed my knees up. I committed to what I was doing, Greg. That's all.
No, good stuff.
I was committed to it and
Lost some
perhaps
bark.
overly committed to it.
There was no questioning Rusty's dedication. That slide is absolutely exceptional. We have actually got it on camera as well, which that footage has to get leaked at some point, I dare say, because, that's one for the highlight reel.
Yeah, we'll get it up there somewhere. Anyway, it was good. I know that there is a write-up about that shoot coming online in the next probably couple of days from the time we're recording this, and that is on Practical Rifle Australia's website. So make sure you check out that's Andy McNeil's website, although I think Butters has written the write-up on it. So a bunch of photos there as well, so you guys who are listening will be able to check out all the details from it, and the video is probably coming shortly as well.
So it sounds like he's going to beat you with his NT video rather than your Precision Rifle Invitational one here in South Australia, Rusty.
That video has been ready to go for 6 months, but everyone's been not 6 months, 3 months. But everyone's going to be complaining too much. It's going to take too long, so I'm just sitting on it. We're just waiting, just drawing it out,
I can just see Butter crying in the corner at the moment, just rocking back and forth in the fetal position.
That's really what I'm aiming for. Someone send me a video of that. That'd be great.
I'm sure you would provide them with a mug if they do that.
Sure. Butter's a bit of a mug anyway. And so the other thing that's probably happened pretty majorly in the last few weeks is the Brisbane Shot Expo, which, Greg, you and I were at.
Yep.
And we, once again, didn't see very much.
No, it was pretty busy. Plenty of people came through. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Sort of a different crowd than normal. Normal. That's the wrong word right
that
there.
was harsh.
Listen
to that, Brisbane.
Different.
Greg loves you.
Yeah. All right, I might.
No wonder you get kicked out of pubs in
I
Brisbane.
might get stoned to death on the next visit. But it's just they're more hunter orientated. I think a lot of conversations I had. I was helping out STS Target selling still gongs, which is hand in hand with precision shooting and long range shooting. And there was a lot of guys come up and what are these about? And yeah, they were more sort of about hunting, pigs and all that sort of stuff. But you educate them a little bit and they're like, oh, wow, this is a fantastic idea. And that, they were keen to buy a plate and get some practice in. So, yeah, no, it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly that would certainly be true. We had a pretty packed out session for the long range talk we did, particularly on the Saturday. Sunday was a bit quieter, but apparently a bit quieter all around. That was the same day as the big fight, the
McGregor
Mayweather. That's the one. And so that was a lot quieter. Actually, I think basically the time that fight went on, the whole place died.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Sunday was pretty quiet, but Saturday. The chat we did, the room was packed and had heaps of questions afterwards and spent some good time with people. So that was very good. Got heckled a fair bit by Fat Jesus and Richard from Wilco. But anyway, all I had to say to Fatty was 8 ball, and that sort of kept him quiet pretty quickly, and it was good fun. And so. Brisbane was good. I'm trying to think if there's any particular products that was worth mentioning. The Victrix rifles that Beretta had were pretty sweet looking things. Did you get a chance to look at them?
No. I didn't get around too much, but I'm a gadget man, as we know.
Right,
I did go have a look at the Pulsar stuff,
of course,
and have a chat to the Extravision guys, and the new Trail thermals that are out. So I just had a look through those. They're pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, that's the main thing I'd be lined for.
Well, did you? Speaking of gadgets, did you have a look at that thing hanging off my wrist on Sunday?
Oh, I got a quick look at that.
You got a quick look. So the guys at Garmin, we met them on Saturday night, and they very graciously gave us a one of those new. I don't remember the model numbers, but the Applied Ballistics GPS Garmin device. They didn't give us one, they lent me one for the Sunday to wear and to play with. And it was a very interesting device to use. You'd have to be, I think, in the right scenario for it to be a better option than Kestrel with Applied Ballistics, perhaps.
Yeah, how was the data input into that sort of thing? Does it just have a series of buttons on the side? Or is
so
it
there's about
Bluetooth,
four buttons on the bottom, and so everything was self-contained. And so you would flick through and you adjust your data, put all that information in. I didn't play with the GPS settings because I pretty much stood in one spot for the entire day, so I didn't think that was very sensible to try out. But I'm sure those familiar with how GPS works on those sort of devices are up to speed on it. From a hunting scenario, it would have been good because the thing weighed nothing. It was so light, and so if your density altitude was going to be pretty consistent for your weekend, or you're familiar with the area and you can pick what it is, or if someone else is running a drop or something like that, you could then put that information in. It didn't source that information itself. But the interface was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be pretty painful to put data in, and it wasn't. And then you could display it, change your distances pretty quickly on that device, and it was right there. If you're in shooting position, it is right where you need it to be.
So you said it was from Garmin. So was it a functional GPS as well?
Yes, but I didn't try it. Yeah, but it's
it's two devices into one from a hunting perspective, from a like you say, from a packing and size and weight perspective. There's benefits there as well for like your backpack hunting and stuff like that.
Oh, for all those things, absolutely. And we are going to get a chance to play with it later in the year as well for a bit longer as well. So that's going to be something to look forward to.
So does it have like a range card functionality? Because that's probably one of the things that I use the Kestrel for quite a lot in a hunting scenario. I'll set it up with my range card over the distances I'm expecting. So then, if something presents itself at 600 or 680 or whatever it is, I've got that data or data near enough in hand.
So, as far as I could find easily, no. But I also didn't have a manual for it. So I sort of just press buttons until I found things that worked. So I'm not going to say it doesn't, because it may be an option there that I didn't see. But what it represents to you on your wrist is the solution for whatever distance you put in.
Maybe hold off until we have a good look at it.
Yeah,
in
could
the
it have
future.
more? Certainly it could. But I didn't see it. But as I said, literally just they put on my wrist and away I walked, and that was it.
Does it have the ability for Bluetooth at all, like Bluetooth connection?
Again, not that I saw, but
Okay.
I'm not entirely
Yeah,
sure. I'm not gonna say it was an amazing review of it. I just played with it, and
That'd be pretty groovy if it
Yeah.
did, especially with all the Bluetooth.
Then you could go
range
from
finders.
something like the Kestrel drop, where you sort of
Yes.
latch it onto your bag and then
Exactly.
sort of off you go. I mean, that'd make sense.
if you could do that in a drop card, that would be brilliant. I didn't see those features, but as I said, it was we had limited time, and despite the fact I wore it on my wrist for a day, we were pretty flat
Yeah.
out for that day. So it was cool to play with. The weight surprised me. I thought the thing was going to be bigger and heavier and chunkier, and it wasn't. So from that point of view, it was actually quite useful.
Be interesting to see if it's also got a breadcrumb feature. A breadcrumb feature.
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
As I
that'd
said,
be
didn't play with the
worthwhile for
GPS, but that's I think it's a pretty high spec GPS, the base model of it. So yeah, I think it does all that really
Wonder what
well,
you get for
waypoints
them.
and everything.
I mean, being a partnership with Applied Ballistics, those guys generally don't want to associate their name with something that's subpar, so you'd expect it to be pretty well on point as far as the GPS and other capabilities would go.
Yeah, I certainly think they would have picked the right model for that. The other cool thing that there was a shot, and I think it was by Aimpoint. It was I'm trying to think of the words to describe it, like a virtual reality hunting game, I guess. You basically like wander up to this stage, this platform sort of elevated up, and you'd put your VR goggles on and hold this like stock effectively. And I'm guessing there was a trigger on it or something like that, and you'd pretty much like, point and shoot at pigs running past and all this sort of gear, and there was screens on there, so usually there was a fair bit of an audience around watching whatever the person on the game was doing. That was really quite cool to see. I think there's some photos up on the SSAA Shot Expo Facebook about that. Didn't get a chance on that one. We were all flat out.
No, and there was always a massive line on it
yeah.
too. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that stuff develops into possible training opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, whether they can relate that to your living room for practice moving targets and stuff like that.
PRS,
there's
game.
potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's potential.
I mean, you think about it, the cost of gyroscopes aren't particularly expensive, accelerometers and bits and pieces like that. Wouldn't be that hard to build a module that attaches to a rifle in this day and age for that training exercise.
Get on it, Bronte.
I'll be honest.
I'll do the copyright for you.
Greg, if you fund it, I'm quite happy to do the R&D on it, mate.
I've not commonly thought about the price of gyroscopes in my normal day-to-day life. I'll be honest with you. Paul, you?
No, I was just thinking Xbox myself.
Good. I think we've all played Big Buck Hunter, so that's certainly that's the benchmark. We're going to go up from there. But yeah, that whatever game, I guess, simulation, whatever you want to call it, it looked pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
I would have liked to have got a go on that.
Yeah,
maybe
so
next time. The other thing that do we talk about the Saturday night, the shot? We where I got recognised by a listener and you got kicked out of a pub. Should we leave that there? We'll
leave that there.
Yeah, I thought we might.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll leave my boozing out of it.
No, I didn't say boozing. You could have been in a fight. No, you weren't in a fight. All right, well, we shall move on to some other things. Now, generally speaking, there's usually some new toys or new kit floating around, and we got some other guys in here. What's taking your fancy in the last couple of months, guys? Have you bought any new toys or anything like that?
Yeah, I guess I'll start off with that one. I'm still playing around with different rifles and calibers, etc., and I've just sort of progressed to a 6.5 by 47 lap. It's a tack stiller, essentially, and in a matter stock. And took it out for the first time on, I think, Sunday last week, and short of all the people coming in the range, I got about 14 shots off, which is, all of it looks pretty promising. So was shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor before that, but I think the lap might have it actually. It's even from recoil management, the whole 9 yards, it just seemed the goods. It was, I did 3 sighting shots and they touched, and that was the first sort of 3, and I was like, well, yeah, okay.
A bit of a smile crept on the face. Yeah.
It was one of those moments. I mean, I've got to be honest with you. I've been shooting for sort of 10, 12 years, whatever, and to actually have, I bore sighted it and did everything. But the first 3 shots at 100 metres were literally half a mil off centre ball, and I was like, wow, that's sort of telling me keep going. So
Yeah.
Nice.
What made? No, I'm not sure if we got enough time for this question tonight, but what made you jump to the 6.5 or 47 over the Creedmoor? Or is it circumstantial?
Oh, a couple of things. It's one of those things that I was actually tossing up between the two. I had an opportunity to build a custom rifle, which is where the 6.5 Creedmoor came into it. I had Nick from Ignition Custom doing it for me, and we were tossing up between the two. And it's just, I guess it was in it's about 18 months ago, so the hype of the Ruger Precision and people sort of going on about the 6.5 Creedmoor, and I was undecided. And then I knew there was a hassle trying to get the brass for the 6.5 or 47 lap, because it was really, I guess in its infancy at that state. Like, it just didn't seem as popular as a 6.5 Creedmoor.
Yeah,
I could see sort of
popularity
issues.
perhaps to be the claim,
Yeah.
not infancy. It's been around for a while.
Yeah, I guess in Australia it just seemed to be, I was looking for dyes and I couldn't find them anywhere, and I was like, well, okay, well, do I take the path less travelled? And I succumbed to the pressure and I went for the 6.5 Creedmoor, and beautiful rifle. Hey, credit to Nick. It was laser beam. It's awesome rifle.
Did shoot well?
It did, mate. Yeah, it's very well. Better than the user, actually.
Was that a hunting rig or a
No, it was
long range rig?
It was actually, I think I sort of designed it for sort of PRS in mind.
Oh, yeah.
It was a cross between I guess like it wasn't an extremely heavy profile barrel, but it was a cross between that and a varmint, so it was slightly heavier than a varmint.
Yep.
We didn't flute it for, we're trying to sort of keep the weight down, but then not introduce heat and all this argument about, I mean,
Sure.
you have all the
Floating's
things
pretty
that you're trying to listen
controversial
to.
topic there, especially if you're
Yeah, I
starting
know.
into stress relieving and all that sort of stuff of
Well-
barrels and how they're buttoned,
Especially with an
Button.
engineer in the group.
Yeah,
button rifled versus cut rifling, all those lovely things.
Just thought I'd throw that out there, but just to keep it simple and safe, I thought I'll just leave it as a plain barrel, and muzzle braked and everything else, and it wasn't overly heavy, but it was, like I said, it was accurate. And it just happened to be that I had an option to buy a 6.5 or 47 lap, but it was actually a tax dealer, and it was just too good to give up.
Yeah.
So that sort of came into the realm as well, and I hadn't sort of played with it. I'd stuck it on the shelf type thing, and was playing around with a 6.5, and then had a few sort of issues with I was tossing around with projectiles, like I do with most when I shoot PRS. I tend to change something.
Yeah,
which is
mid-comp.
Silly, yeah, exactly. Spend most of the time on the 100 metre range, but it's
I wasn't going to give you a hard time about that tonight, but you've opened the floodgates, so here we go. Strap
well,
yourself in.
it's time, mate. I don't get time to shoot, and it tends to be the morning of the comp gives me the opportunity. So
Good.
yeah. But no,
Glad we can help.
I really do think I've gone from a 140 projectile to a 130, which seems to sort of I'm hoping sort of defeats the wind a little bit, and it's going to be a faster shooter, and it's really promising. So
Good stuff.
and just for future reference, the barrel is fluted. So
Oh, well, that's a classic mistake there.
Brilliant. All right, Bronte, what about you, mate? Any new toys recently?
No new toys as such. It's in the procurement phase at the moment.
All right.
I'm talking with Steve from Precision Rifle Products and looking
Right.
at doing a little bit of a take on his modular chassis and setting it up for a long-range hunting / sort of budget ELR gun built off a 300 Win Mag Ticker action. But I'm looking to sort of run it off of AI mags and a couple other little features that I'm still sort of working through the details of,
Okay.
which hopefully make it more suited for for the application. I can't really say too much yet.
Oh, right,
'cause they're
yeah.
still
Secret
in
squirrel,
R&D
hey?
phase, but yeah, that's pretty much where my focus is at the moment.
What have you got on Steve to get him to give you a long action in a ticker? I've been trying to get a long action in one of those chassis for a Remington for so long.
I'm probably going to have to model it myself and design it.
Plus, the majority of the stock is the same for a long action or short action ticker, part of the magazine channel. Although, if you're doing something, did you just? I didn't listen to what you just said. Did you talk about doing doing a this in a this, not a this? Does make any
there was a
sense
little
to me.
bit of a that instead
you-
of a this,
did
and
you-
then a bit of up instead of a there.
I like how clear we are. Did you mention anything about a WSM?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
good,
probably
okay,
looking
good.
at looking at a
I should have paid far more attention.
A
then.
7-300 WSM.
So, in which case, you don't have to open it all up for the large magazines. You can run with a shorter mag.
No. I want to run the long action ish, as
Okay.
long action as I can on the ticker, because obviously
Of course,
the issue
for
with
the
the
bulk.
tickers being they aren't a true long action in the sense they're a little bit restricted.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason, because it's currently a 300 Win mag, and the intent is to turn it into a switch barrel
Okay.
and
right.
then have it set up for the 7-300 WSM to be able to run the sort of quite heavy projectiles.
Yep.
And seat them right out and make use of that magazine capacity.
Is that the only issue on the ticker?
Okay,
Just throwing that one out there.
let's move on from that, because that'll keep us here all night if we
Fanboy alert.
if we start opening up the ticker versus anything else debate. Greg, can you remind me one day we need to have a podcast about switch barrel guns? An
Okay, we'll
interesting
do.
discussion that I'd be interested to see some points out of that. Is there anything else playing with? I know it sounds like an exciting project, mate, and certainly there's lots of things to take into account. Are you in any particular hurry for it? You're just going to take it as it comes and take it slow?
It's probably one of those things that it's on the desk with about 15 or 16 other projects, so
Good.
it's not going to come anytime soon.
Nice.
I really probably need to finish off my induction and annealing machine first, because that's just looks pretty Frankenstein at the moment, so that needs a bit of a tidy up and
That's the best kind.
made to look a little bit neater.
The thing
Excellent.
is, does it work?
Yeah,
And is it under $400?
it cost me nearly $400.
That's fine. Make two of them.
Yeah, well, I'm
commissioned.
currently trying to work through the details of putting like a touchscreen LED on it for programming the times and stuff like that.
Wow. Make three of them then.
Cool, make it 4. Greg, any toys in your side of things?
I think I mentioned it last podcast. I've just got rid of the 223 out of my ESS chassis and just ordered a 243.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah,
Have you got
so-
that yet? Or yeah?
No, well, yeah, it'll be this week, but just thinking about chopping that down to 20-inch.
Yep.
Running slightly light. I usually run 87s. I'm thinking about running 69s, is it? VMAX?
5s?
65 VMAX?
Yep, sure.
Yeah, and just
You could
for
spit on them a
mobility.
little bit and bump it up.
Yeah, so all about mobility.
Yep.
Just for the thermal, just my ideal thermal setup.
Mm-hmm.
And more about getting in and out of the vehicle without taking off the sling. I went and got one of those Magpul MS4 slings
Right.
that you can run 2-point or you can run 1-point
Okay. Yep.
QDs. So just trying to get that, move around, do everything I do on a normal hunt without having to put the rifle in the back seat or any of that sort of stuff. I just want it on me.
Yep.
Just trying to work on that, and I'm just waiting for MDT to bring out the folding stock for the ESS chassis, which is due by Christmas, I think.
Yeah,
Which
that makes two
Christmas?
of us.
Yeah, I'm rubbing my hands together waiting for that.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay, cool. Well, I've actually gone the other way. I'm selling guns and scopes and bits and pieces,
Yeah.
just to free up some cash, basically, stuff I'm not using. And so if anyone's after anything, let me know. Got stuff to move on. Ruger Precision, perhaps. No overt advertising at all, but if you want to buy something, let me know. 3 Vortex scopes. And the Bushnell. And so, slowly chipping away at that to, really refine some stuff and also,
That's it.
purchase some upgrades for some other gear. So don't exactly know what I'm going to go down the line for, but certainly reviewing it at present. So,
Get a thermal.
you know what? I'd love to,
Yeah.
but not with this revision of
No,
my
I'm
stock
just mucking
holdings.
around. Yeah.
But thermal would certainly. I'd put put it this way, Greg. It's on the list. It's a long list.
Yeah.
It's
I
always
can
a long
imagine.
list.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, Jen. So our actual topic for this evening, the reason I've brought you all here, actually you brought yourselves, but anyway, is your reloading process. So one of the things that I've found in discussions with people, and I know, Paul, you were talking about a story previously about the same thing, that we all start with fired brass usually, or perhaps new brass, but we all start with brass, and we all end up with a loaded round. But the process that we actually get there, the order of that process is often different, or we take different steps, or we go through different things. So I'm going to ask you guys to talk about your process and what you do and how you go through it. Now, should we do this on a... I'm trying to think the best way to do this. Do we ask everyone their individual process and then like criticize it, or do we sort of slowly step through the process all together and end up at the same point at the end? That's a legit question I'm actually asking.
What about, I mean, because I could sort of give you a step-by-step breakdown of how I started reloading and then what I did to get into it and then where I've sort of progressed from there, because I get so many questions of people of, what do you do? How do you do it? And I was one of the, I guess, unfortunate few that when I started shooting, I had a really good mate who was right into guns, but not reloading. You know what I mean? He was a red hot shot, but on factory ammo. And I took the step into reloading because my calibers were bigger than his, and to afford it, you know what I mean? And to make that premium ammo, it's like, okay, well, I've got to delve into that.
Right, yeah, sorry.
So that wasn't a joke. Sorry.
No.
Okay. Good.
So,
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll start with you, Paul. Take us through what how you go about it.
all right, well, I mean, I started off with a Lee reloading set, I think it was, which is just a standard lock and load, I think it is it?
That's the Hornady one.
Okay. It's
Breech lock, or what else they called them? There's anyway.
It was just the budget one. It was basically the starter model.
Yep.
And then I worked out, okay, I need a powder trickler. Okay, that's driving me nuts. I need, I want an electronic trickler. That was good. I've got that sorted. Move on to dies. I went from a standard set to a deluxe set, and then I've progressed from a single turret to a 4-stage turret, and I can actually keep all dies, for that one caliber in the one turret. So I've sort of progressed relatively quickly, but it sort of it gave me a really good basis of what to start with, which was really, really handy. And then, I've just on-sold all the gear as I've gone on. And I started with factory brass, so I'd buy factory ammo and try and keep that consistent. So I'd shoot, Remington, Winchester, whatever it may be, Federal. And then I think the last 2 years, I've then progressed into Lapurs and Normas, etc. And you start seeing, you start chasing that I guess, that consistency. And it was just evident that, I started really well in the sense of I started from the basics, and I really did progress quite well. And it was you could sort of see the difference and the speed with reloading, and even down to trimming. I've gone from a single case trimmer with like the Lee cutters to a Lyman now, and now I've got I've got probably 6 or 7 different calibers, and I've got 6 or 7 different cutters. I don't mess around trying to reset. I just take them off, bang. I'd stick that in one box. You do progress to find out what your niche is and how you want to do it. And I'm one of those people that I'd rather just a box with 223, 6.5 or 47, whatever it is, and it has the cutter, the dies, the inserts, everything. Bang, take it out, one box. Set it up, bang, I'm into it. I've gone from that, as I said, into now to I guess premium brass. You can start seeing the difference, and I'm now into the sense of I've gone from media tumbler to a stainless steel tumbler.
Yeah. That's a good move.
Yeah, I love it.
You'll never go back.
Yeah.
Actually, in saying that, I use both still, but
No,
You'll never go back, except I did.
Yeah, except me.
no, I use both. I didn't go back. I just use both.
There is nothing worse than pulling those bloody corncob media out of the primer
holes.
You can keep that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's bring us back to that, because there is a difference in some reloading processes. So in terms of your process, I'm going to ask you guys, is the first thing you do clean your brass?
Yeah. depriming in the tumbler is my first.
And what type of tumbler?
I use stainless.
Stainless?
Love the bloody thing.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Bronte?
Yeah, I deprime mine using one of the Harvey depriming tools,
Mhm.
and then stainless tumble it.
Paul?
And I've done the same now. I've actually jumped across to the single like hand deprimer,
Yep.
tumble the brass, and then resize.
And so you're all running stainless tumbler.
Yeah.
I use both, but
Tell-
we'll get
tell
to
me-
that.
Yeah.
You're
Okay,
special.
so you use stainless for this process?
Yep, I use stainless for the first clean.
Okay, cool. This is where we're heading. Cool. So in terms of, I'll be honest with the majority of my precision stuff, I get my brass done at by a bloke called Rob Parker for Acuload, who basically sending me brass and it comes back sparkling and really consistent. And he's much more anal about that than I am, so I let him do it. Plus, it chews up
Yeah.
time. But when I do have to do my brass, the only thing I've got is a corn cob tumbler. And so when I'm loading something like 22-250, in fact, you know what I'm going to use? I'm going to use my 22-250 as my example tonight. So that's, it's my spotlighting gun, and I don't give it as much attention in terms of the reloading, but it is quite a different process to perhaps what you guys are going to be doing. So I'm going to use that as my example for my answers this evening. And so what I do with that is I leave the spent primers in there, and I throw it in the corn cob tumbler for about 15 hours for the time I actually get clean, and then pull it out, and then away we go. So Bronte, what do you do after you've cleaned it? And of course you've got your primer out already. What's your next step?
So basically, I take it out of the stainless tumbler, separate the pins, which is probably the most frustrating part of the whole reloading process.
That's why I get Rob to do it. Never mind. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, I do.
Do
like
you
to
use a
think of that.
separator?
Yeah, no. I use a bucket and water.
Yeah, get a separator. Yeah, and stainless is easy.
Okay,
Yeah.
so from a corn cob perspective, yeah, separator. Definitely separator.
Yeah,
Oh, Bronte,
anyway,
you're the intelligent one, man. I mean, you could have worked that way out.
Surely you would have engineered something to do this by now.
I'm working on it. That's one of the 15 or 16 projects. Then my next step is I put it into a dehydrator.
Yep.
So I've got just like a $20 eBay dehydrator,
Mhm.
and that's the quickest way I found of drying all my shells, because then I don't have to put them in the sun and they don't get as many water spots and stuff on them from the stainless tumbler.
Greg found a cheaper way to do that. Pinch his wife's food.
Yeah, works really well. She doesn't listen.
You use the dehydrator as well?
Yeah, I
please?
use a food dehydrator we had for the kids years ago.
I use Metho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll separate water. That'll work.
Because, I mean,
Yeah.
it's instant. I mean,
Yeah.
it's literally...
Well, it's not. All it really does is metho is predominantly ethanol, so it absorbs water, so it's sort of hydrophilic.
Yeah, but I don't drink it. I dip the brass into it. Come on, Bronte.
It's
Right.
one way of getting around it. But
No, but basically, it just seems that, like,
Get rid of
I
most of it.
basically, it gets,
Yeah.
it almost separates it quickly.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I put them upside down in a case tray, like within 15 minutes, I can start reloading. It's dead.
Yeah.
It almost evaporates dry. So
Yeah, cool. All right. And so I do, what am I doing? 250. So I media separate, and I don't have to worry about drying. You suckers. And what do we do once the cases are dry? Paul, what's your next step?
what's my next step after drying?
Greg, what's your next step after
so
drying?
next step will be sizing for me.
Yep.
So I've got a couple of different, like for my 6x47, which is my long range one, I have Reading dies for that.
Yep.
For my hunting rigs, they're all just RCBS
Mm-hmm.
dies. I full length size all my stuff.
And so what do you do? I imagine you lube before you size?
Yeah,
So what do you do?
I'm still pretty traditional. I've still got the. I started off with the RCBS lock and load, the starter
that's
pack.
still Hornady.
Nah.
Like we said before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Rock Chucker Supreme,
Rock Chucker?
perhaps.
yeah. Rock Chucker, is it? Yeah,
That's
the starter pack. And I've got a very similar background to Paul in that I've.
And that's the pad? You
So,
roll
yeah,
across
the pad. I've upgraded everything except the pad bit. So
Yep.
I've still got the traditional pad. Yeah, so just give them a run through and
And then running through the size.
Yeah, running through the sizer.
Bronte, the same.
No, I add another step in there.
I didn't ask you to explain. Paul, what about you? Are you the same? Paul, are you the same or are you different? at
No,
this
much
point?
the same. I was
Much
just going to ask
same?
Greg though. Do you resize, like case trim your brass before you resize, or
No, I'll do that after because my trimming is indexed off the neck.
okay?
So
And,
I'll talk
and
about
so
that
do you
in a minute.
resize or do you trim at this point?
I actually I tend to resize.
Resize first?
Yeah,
Yep.
but I use a lineman, so it's actually the full length of the case anyway. So I don't
Mm.
size off the neck.
Yep.
Not yet.
And lubing?
I've gone to the is it the Hornady One Shot? I think it is. You spray it
spray?
on. Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I've only
Are
used
you
it-
asking me?
Oh,
'Cause
Well,
I
any of you
refuse to
speak, 'cause
answer
I-
anything
I've
about
only
it.
used it once,
'Cause-
and it seemed to go okay.
Yeah, because
So-
I'd like to do something different than the lube pad, but I only want to go to something that people think works.
I've gone
So I
from
don't
the
know.
lube pad. I've
Yeah.
used the powder. I think the Lyman powder.
Yeah,
I've used the Hornady lube paste. I think it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've used
The unique.
I've used quite a few, and
yeah,
that Hornady spray, it just seems to be
works.
quickest and easy, and it seemed
Yeah.
to work. Yeah.
That's
Can you have you've used it once? You said.
Yeah, but I loaded like 200 cases when I
Cool.
used it.
Can you
so-
message me? Tell me when you get a stuck case. That'd be wonderful, mate.
So that's next time he reloads.
Won't be far off. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. The issue I have with the one shot, and I used it quite a bit, and ever since I stopped using it, I haven't had a stuck case. Is
But you don't reload. Rob does.
back then I used to, and then hang on, we're using this on my 2250. When I use that, what I find is that people generally it's an inconsistent spread. So because of that, it's not uncommon to see a stuck case. Often if you ask someone, if they come on Facebook and they say, got a stuck case, and you go, did you lube? They go, of course I did. You go, what, did you use Hornady One Shot? And they say, yes. You go, yeah, I should have put money on that bet. Unfortunately, it happens a lot. And it's not because it's necessarily bad lube, I've learned. But it's just that inconsistency in terms of actually spraying it on the case.
so. How do you spray it on? Do you just have them in the?
I don't use it. I think it's rubbish.
Yeah, because I've seen guys apply it in a bag, like in a Ziploc
I've seen
bag,
that,
and
yep.
then shake it
I've
around
tried
in the
that,
bag.
yeah.
You tried that, okay?
I did. Well, mine wasn't a bag; it was a bucket, but a tub.
Yeah, okay.
And look, I certainly, for me, I won't go back to it. I'm sure it works for some guys, and they've found a method of delivery. And I think that's the big thing: is how do you deliver it to the cases to get
Yeah,
it consistent. But
Yeah.
generally speaking, so at this point I would use the pad for my 22 to 50. If I was reloading anything else, I use the Hornady Unique. Which is the paste stuff. And
just
I
put it
that
on your
by-
fingers
put it
and
on
just
by
yeah,
hand. That
Yep.
stuff's real viscous and goes a long, long way.
yeah.
Mm. So back to you, Bronte, and because you didn't sort of conform with the rest of us, prior to resizing, what do you go through?
So before I resize, I'll induction anneal.
Right.
So I've found that has been something I've only really added into the system recently.
Yep.
And I've noticed not necessarily accuracy improvements, but have noticed a decrease in my extreme spread and standard deviations
Yeah.
that I would proportion to that.
Okay.
So after I've done that,
I have to say, Rob does that aspect from Accuload as
Yeah.
well for me.
Um,
So certainly that's a good process.
It's funny though because Rob does the same
hilarious.
for me. No, Rob does my annealing as well,
Oh,
and
it's
he
all
told
coming
me
out
to
now.
do. Oh, yeah, I tried getting the whole sort of system done with Rob, and he told me to build it. But he actually asked me to resize and get everything done to the case, and then he anneals, which is slightly different to what you do.
yep. The reason I have gone with the system I do is because for me, I'm firing from the same gun, so all my cases are fired, so they're already expanded out to my chamber profile. So they're already at essentially the same point. I then anneal them, which is essentially changing the grain structure of the brass, and then size them. If I size them first, if some of those cases have, say, been fired 3 times, others have been fired 8 times, the ones that have been fired 8 times have work hardened more. So when I go to resize that case, that's going to actually spring back. It's going to spring back more than the case that hasn't been working hardened as much. So when I go to put it in the annealing machine, one case is actually bigger than the other because of the amount of spring back. Whereas if I anneal it, I reduce that metal hardness to the same point on every case.
Mm-hmm.
I then resize all from that same datum.
Okay, yeah. See, I actually batch my brass, so I've got 2 lots of 200. So I'll fire the 200, and they're all, one's fired, 2 fired, 3 fired, whatever they are. But they all, I guess that's the consistency I've always gone for. Yeah, so there's There you go, slightly different. Yeah.
Yeah, one issue that I have found early on in the piece with the way that I did it is when I went to resize the cases, I was getting some scoring on the outside of the neck because that material is a bit softer.
Yep.
But changing over to the titanium nitride coated dies seemed to
Fix that up.
fix that up. No worries.
So given you anneal and then you resize, do you what
I
lube
also
do?
do
You
my
lube?
flash holes.
Okay.
If it's obviously after I've done you only have to do that once,
Yep.
but I'll deburr my flash holes, particularly if it's an American brass. Typically the European
No
stuff.
need to be racist.
Well, it's more about the method that they make the brass. They punch whether they punch it or drill the flash hole.
Sure.
I still do go over Lapua and Norma brass because I try to get a little bit of a bevel in there to try to get a slightly more consistent flame profile from the primer. Then I typically use the I think it's the Imperial sizing wax. The
Reading.
the Reading Imperial sizing wax, and just a little bit on your hands, and
Way you
run that through. And then I've basically resized all my cases. That's when I'll put them into the dry tumbler to remove that wax off the outside, because obviously that Reading wax is it's a bit slippery and slimy, and it stays around the case more so than what your Hornady One Shot and those other products do. But since I've used that, I've never had a stuck case, so it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're not the first one I know who will clean them after they have resized to get that lube off.
Can I just add a couple of things?
You can.
Firstly, I also deburr. I think that's a really worthwhile.
You're talking flash holes?
Yeah, flash holes. Absolutely do that. From an SD standpoint, that's a big add, or a big reduction, I should say.
Yep.
Secondly, I just wanted to add, because I full length size, I actually set the dies correctly. That's something...
I actually go out of my way to set them incorrectly.
Yeah, well, if you follow the instructions, you probably are, because you really need to you need to get some fired brass and understand how far your shoulder's sitting, and then set your die to that. And I think Hornady call them headspace gauges. Well, no, they're not the true headspace gauge, but with a set of those, you can set your die to minimise the amount of working you're doing on your brass.
Yep.
So definitely have a look at that if you're full length sizing.
It's one of those things that's something that gets missed by so many people, and pretty much everybody who you see complaining about head separation, they don't set their dies up correctly 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, it's funny you say that too, because I've been reloading for quite some years, and I've actually just got out and bought the gauge to test the fired brass, or the Hornady gauge. Yeah. And I'm going down that path now. I mean, it's about that consistency, and that's my next step, I guess, is to rule out my error. Trying to sort of push the case back too far. Yeah,
because I used to set my full-length dies to the instructions, which was like down and then, back half a turn or whatever it was. But that was like 11th thou or something I was pushing them down, where you're trying to get the shoulder to only go down about 2 thou. In that vicinity.
1-2 thou is all I normally work to.
Yeah.
It's actually quite interesting you say that, Paul, because with the Weirden dies, they actually come with that headspace attachment.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because, obviously they're targeted to more that real bench rest precision shooting. And it's one thing that, a lot of people who haven't actually seen it done or haven't had that exposure just aren't aware of, and it's a common error.
And you should get a longer life out of your full length sizing as well, out of the brass.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you're only working that shoulder 1-2 thou versus 10-12 thou, that's a lot less growth that case has to do every time it fires.
So Bronte, do you full length size as well, or do you neck size?
No, I very first started a full length size and didn't know how to set my dies up properly, and then decided that full length sizing was rubbish. Then went to neck sizing, and that was fine for a while until the point that the cases were difficult to chamber. And now I actually full length size but bump my shoulder back by 1 thou. So that's what I've found to be the most precise in the respect that I get reliable feeding. Because with neck sizing, I'm not particularly fussy with my brass in the respect of how many times it's been fired.
Yep.
It kind of just ends up in a bucket. And, one piece of brass is done twice, one piece is done 10 times. So I found that full-length sizing eliminates that lack of traceability, so to speak.
I think that one of the things, though, is that, and you guys have all just alluded to it, and it was going to always be mentioned at some point during this, is that reloading is certainly a journey. And we start out learning a way that works, and we can get the job done. And then there's a continual refinement of process, and I guess that's what we're going through at the moment. Because a lot of guys will learn how to set their die up based on the general book instruction or whatever it is, which nothing particularly wrong with that, but there's ways you can refine it and make it better, which comes in time with experience and knowledge.
Yeah, I think knowledge is a big key, and training and reading books. That's certainly where it came from for me. But definitely starting with those starter packs from Hornady and RCBS, that'll get you going.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it.
Well and truly.
It's one of those things that you sort of touched on that, Greg. I didn't read any books. I kind of just figured it out. I bought powder, I bought projectiles, and kind of guess they'll go
Cuffed
together
it.
eventually.
Throw it all together and hit it with a hammer. Yeah.
So
Well, that's typical engineering, isn't it? If you can't fix it, if it's meant to move, WD-40 and a hammer. If it still doesn't move, get a bigger hammer. And if it shouldn't move, grey tape and cable ties, and you're fine.
Yeah. It's pretty much how I do my reloading.
I did much the same, and it's funny though, not with
The
a
cable
grey tape and
doesn't,
hammer.
doesn't chamber with the cable ties, huh?
No, I started off with a lease set, like I said, and my first, I guess, foray into it was neck sizing, like straight away.
Yeah, right.
But it's actually funny though, since I've started doing the PRS type shooting, I'm chasing that muzzle velocity a bit more. So where I was before, I was sort of 2400 and plus in the MV range. My brass didn't stretch that much. All right, so I could neck size quite comfortably. I could get 6, 7, 8 firings out of it, no dramas. I'm chasing that MV now, and I'm up around the 2850, and it's funny. You've got to bump the shoulder. Like, you can't just neck size because, as you say, you can't chamber the round. So it's funny how your style of shooting changes over the years, and that then progressively changes the way you reload.
It's also
How often do you have to bump on neck sizing typically?
Well, on the 6.5 Creedmoor, I found that the higher the velocity, that really was the shoulder on that really did need to be bumped.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
Every firing?
literally, yeah, because I
Wow.
noticed.
Yep.
If I didn't do it, because as I said, my history is neck sizing. It's fire formed, awesome, best way to start type thing. And I was finding I was struggling closing the bolt.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, hang on, what's going on here? And then, you ask the questions and, talk to people that have been doing it for years and, I've burned Rusty's ears for a bit and sort of find out the whys and wherefores. And it just seemed to be, okay, in that instance, if I'm chasing my MV, full sizing is probably the way to go in that instance.
Yeah, and I know for me, I was sort of heavily influenced by hunting because I've been out in the field with neck sizes and little bit of dust in the chamber, and it's pretty much game over. Well, if you're not prepared to free a case or free a round, you can take a rifle out of the game.
You revert back to if it doesn't move and it's meant to, the larger hammer. A lot of ball shooting was spotlighting in the early days, and that was exactly the same. You're driving around in a dusty environment, and you get stuck cases, and then you yell and scream when things run away that shouldn't be running away because you can't get around in it.
Yeah, that's horrible. It's a nightmare.
Right, so I think we've got to the point where we've resized our cases and Bronte's cleaned the lube off and everyone else enjoys their cases being lubed. What do you guys, Paul, what do you do after you've resized your cases?
I'm debating whether or not I reclean. Trying to get that lube off and, again, going for the consistency. And
Well, is that a bloke you trust or not?
he doesn't even have a separator for cross. So
I wouldn't trust me either.
No, again, I'm in the territory where I'm starting to change my systems.
Sure.
I've only just gone to the stainless steel media, and like I said, best move I've made, I reckon. But again, I've only just started going the hand deprimer as well.
Yeah.
I used to deprime with
Resizing.
when I resized, and I'd do that before I cleaned. And logic, should tell you that you've got carbon on it, but I used to clean the necks every time I shot. Do you know what I mean? So I'd sort of clean the case anyway, and I wouldn't get much carbon build up. But then with a PRS type shooting, you're just picking them off the ground. You're not, cleaning them. It's not sort of bench rest stuff. So it's the way your shooting progresses and sort of how you sort of go with it. And then
So answer the question, what do you do after you resize?
I load it, Rusty.
Right, someone more useful. Greg, what do
Yeah,
you
I hand prime. I hand prime, sorry. I should
hand
say.
prime? Do you
Yeah.
trim or anything, or are we not?
I've already trimmed. I trimmed before.
You forgot to mention that.
No, I said I trimmed
Oh,
before.
did you?
yeah.
Oh, I wasn't really listening. I'm
Greg's the one that trims after.
Yeah, he said he does it early before he size, which is
does it before he
which
size.
is not necessarily right in the respect
Oh,
that
hang on. No,
Ooh,
wait. Oh,
controversy.
no, is that
Damn.
Should we go into an uncomfortable silence?
All right. Okay. No, we'll just move
Just-
on. We
just
say
pause.
he's trimmed already. All right. Cool. Greg. So Greg.
That might be
After-
my problem actually. So
well, no, it's
I'll
more
take
though
it
when
on
you
board.
resize.
All right. Come
then,
back to it. Come back
you
to it.
then the case grows when you resize it because you're basically pushing that body back in, causing and that metal's got to go somewhere, so it grows.
Yeah, but I
Obviously-
think the thing was I used to neck size.
If
You
you
know
neck
what I mean?
size, then it makes very little
And
difference.
that's what I mean. My
That's
history
where it
is neck
comes from.
sizing.
Yeah.
So that's why I used to get away with it. And like I said, now I'm sort of progressing because I've got to get out of my comfort zone because I am chasing MV and I am, like I said, I'm changing my style and my process.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in the middle of doing that. So yeah, Danny Ramondo's burning my ear on it. So.
All right. So, Paul, you trim. No, you have already trimmed. Greg, is that where you go to? Do you trim?
Yeah, I trim straight after sizing. So I've got one of those, is it Gerald trimmers? I can't pronounce it.
Gerard.
Gerard?
Look, I'm just making more confusion.
Yeah, out of the US.
Gerard.
For your
Gary.
for your more standard calibers, he's got a drill fitting
I
trimmer.
haven't seen that actually.
Yeah, he's only got it for like 223, 243, 308. Your typical sort of common calibers. For Wildcats, you've got to buy the desktop
The
interchangeable
one
one.
behind you. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
That one.
But I hit that, and that inside bevels, outside bevels, and trims at the same time. And that's why I size first, because that indexes off the shoulder, and that's what I was talking about before.
Yeah.
So it's really good. You just like push it in, literally 1 second, zit, 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 and it's
It is pretty good.
it's very,
isn't it?
very efficient, because that was the longest part of my reloading process, was
Yeah.
trimming and deburring.
And do you?
So that was like a godsend.
Actually, I'll ask all of you in a moment. Bronte, are you the same? Is this the point where you trim after you've cleaned your lube off, or
Sorry, I should add. I do clean the lube off.
You do
but
clean the lube off.
I'd just get a rag.
Yep.
I did try and go through reloading without cleaning it, but
Yep.
what I found is bits of carbon and started to stick to the sides of my cases,
Dirt
and then
and
I'm worrying about that getting in
dropping
the
your
dye.
cases,
I actually
yeah.
got bits of carbon in my dye that was starting to dent cases. So that was
Okay.
just an experience thing. So I actually just get a cloth and I'll just wipe them.
Yep.
But I don't load massive quantities, I guess. If I was loading bigger quantities, I'd probably do something like what
yeah,
Bronte's
Bronte
doing, because it'd be more efficient for time. But yeah,
Sure. And Bronte yourself, is this the point where you trim, or not?
I don't really trim very much.
I was expecting you to say something really left field, like, "Oh, I load half my powder at this point, and that's settle." But anyway, sorry, carry on.
Nah, because I'm shooting my 243. I have to trim because that's sort of got a 20-degree shoulder, I think it is from memory, and that tends to grow a little bit more.
Mhm.
But most of the other cases I'm shooting have a fairly steep shoulder, so 30 plus.
Yep.
So I don't find that they grow a huge amount, and also by only sort of bumping the shoulder back one or so thou each time, I'm not really experiencing a huge amount of case growth.
Mhm.
Yes, this is when I would do my trimming.
Yep.
Then make sure I fit on the inside and outside of the case as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I haven't really had to trim a huge amount. I mean, I've still got sort of the Lyman trimmer, which means that it only cuts squares, so you have to do the extra steps.
Yep.
So that's something that I would look at upgrading at some point, so I can do all three at once, and then I'll probably trim more regularly. But
Sure.
that's I sort of skip that. But one thing I'll probably also do before I prime is ream the primer pocket to make sure it's a uniform depth. So I
Okay.
only have to do that once, but I found that also did help reduce SD and
Sure.
extreme spread by having that sort of more consistent primer strike, which then gave me more consistent ignition.
Does anyone batch their brass?
I tried for a while, but I gave up because I just bought, for my 6.5 Super LR, I basically bought 400 odd cases from the same batch from Norma.
Right.
And then every time I got an oddball case, I threw it out.
Yeah, right. What about you, Greg?
no.
Should we ring Rob for you, Rusty, or?
I give him the brass, and no, we don't batch it. No.
Yeah, the only batching I do is firings. Yeah, I just keep it in firing numbers.
Yep.
That's it, and just keep an eye on them that way.
So with where we're up to, so with my 22 to 50, I actually at this point it's sitting on the Dillon. Okay, Dillon 650. It's I've run it off the pad. I throw it into the top, and it lubes as it goes through, and then it resizes on the die, pops the primer out, and then I haven't trimmed my 250 brass because, to be fair, I've probably got 1,000 pieces, and so I usually load them up once every year, maybe 18 months, and I haven't probably fired them enough, that many pieces that I've had to.
I think in one of Litz's books he talks about trimming, and you know how quite often in a book there's a tolerance for trimming, and it's usually about 4-ish thou, 5-ish thou.
Yeah.
For an ideal on, I think it's semi-spec. He said there's not a lot of difference if you let that go. Like there's other things that will affect more than that. So, yeah, I guess you could just sort of let it go inside that tolerance until it hits an edge, and it's probably not going to affect.
Absolutely, and
unless
so
it was extreme.
With my
range.
more accurate loads, if I am loading them myself, I've got a Goroid trimmer as well, so I run them through that. And in that situation, I trim them every time. Actually, I tell a lie. My 250 I have trimmed, but I usually do it. Once every few
3 or 4
reloads, which is over years, and I will just sit there with every piece of brass on the Goroid for half an hour and just go bang, 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 and trim them all en masse. Some of them get hit, some of them don't get touched.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah, and then throw them all in the hopper, and away we go again.
It is actually interesting you raised that, though, because I was speaking to someone earlier today and who's been having a few sort of issues that they've sort of tracked back to the case length actually being too long, and they're having difficulty chambering rounds, chambering empty cases. And the only logical thing that's left is the fact that that case has grown to the point that is bottoming out on the inside of the chamber.
And I have had that previously, years ago, actually, and I've
seen
seen
that on your 338.
No, that was a
different
issue.
scenario.
Yeah, but I've had that on. Now I'm going to struggle to remember what gun it was, but it was 10 years ago plus, and it was case length. So, but what I'm saying with those 22 to 50s, they may get fired once over a year and a half to 2 years.
Just don't grow enough to
over
worry
3
about
years, it might be 2 firings, and probably every 3 years I'll run them through that and do it. So somehow I've amassed that much brass. Yeah, I mean, I've had that gun. Well, I've had a 22 to 50 for many, many years. So,
how do you find the consistency on the Dillon?
Well, I guess we'll get to that eventually. But for the task I'm asking of the gun, sort of a 300-meter Fox gun, it's ample. Yeah, it's fine. So after trimming, actually, that was a question I was going to ask you guys, which I think we all sort of end up is how often do you trim? Do you base on, like, do you measure them and then go, I'm going to trim this lot, or you just every 5th firing or 3rd firing, do you do it, Paul?
Well, again, my methodology's changed. I mean, previously I was obviously neck sizing only, so I was dropping the primer in the same time as doing the neck, and then I'd resize, which I was getting away with. But now what I'm finding is, I do on the 6.5 Creedmoor. I've noticed I do it every time. So what I'll do is I'll hand deprime, like I said. I'll full length size, and then I will cut the case. I'll trim the case to length, and then sort of progress from there. But that's only because of the muzzle velocity, though.
So Paul's slightly confused about his process because he's changing at the moment, which is absolutely fine. So
that's great.
No, because what I was doing was before I actually used to do. I've only just started using the hand deprimer. And on the first time I used the Creedmoor, I hand deprimed and then I actually trimmed the case.
Yep.
With just sort of, because that was my methodology before.
What you normally did,
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then what I did was, like the last time, I think I had Will shooting my rifle in one of the PRIs, and it was inconsistent. And that's what sort of drove me
to that other direction. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just one of those, it was just funny, how it all sort of happened.
Bronte, how often do you trim, or do you trim every time? What's your process?
I trim seldomly. It's really when I start to have difficulty chambering an empty shell.
Okay. Yep. Greg, you...
every time, just because with those Gerard tools, it's so damn easy.
Yep.
Why not take the extra couple of minutes to do the whole damn lot?
Yeah.
So I just vit. Some take, some don't.
Yep.
Yeah, why not?
Consistently. And look, I'd say the same on the stuff I'm loading for precision. I do that. For my 22 to 50, as I said, I sort of do it every 2 or 3 times. I usually, what I'll do is I'll measure, like a random sample of the brass, and then if a few of them are going over, then I'll do the whole lot. And if not, away we go. I guess when you've got a trimming tool that literally is 2 to 3 seconds, you're not thinking about all the time this trimming process is going to take you. So you just go, bang, 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 throw them all through.
So with the conventional trimmer, it's not necessarily the trimming that's the hard part.
It's setting it up.
The setup's a pain. You just sort of do, but as Paul said, you have multiple cutters, and I've gone down the same path, and it makes life a lot easier.
Yep.
But it's the part that I hate is the deburring after the inside and outside deburring.
Yeah,
where the 3-way cutter would just make life 100 times easier.
Do you use one of the Lyman stations though when you do?
Yeah, I've got one of I've got one of those as well. But I've actually sort of stopped using that. And I've just bought like a Milwaukee cordless drill. That's way quicker.
Yeah, right.
Just
Did you get a heated jacket at the same time?
I bought the batteries so I could. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Alpine hunting jacket.
Nice. So we might finish that episode off there. It ended up being quite a long night, actually. And so we'll throw this into a part 2 as well. So, guys, thank you very much for listening. Thanks for Paul for being on the podcast and sponsoring it as well. And we will be back in about a week's time with part 2 of this episode. Cheers, guys. Catch you again.
Thanks for listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast. To continue the discussion, check out our Facebook page. And for more information, head to our website, www.precisionshootingpodcast.com.au. This episode was brought to you by Scoped Out Shooting Optics and Accessories.